All right, so on my screen now we have what we call the Feedback Studio screen. It's a studio because it combines pretty much Turnitin's history of different products that they've released up to this point. We can see those products represented by toolbars on the right side of the screen. The screen I'm showing you now is a sample student paper. So we're kind of starting at the end here. We're looking at the end game. The point of the product is going to be to collect the students' papers and run them by the similarity scan to have them appear on a screen like this so we can break down the similarity between the students' work, the internet, other students' work, and periodicals, journals, and publications from subscription services that Turnitin has a partnership with so that we can get into those documents. So the student does their typing elsewhere, so Google Docs, Microsoft Word. They type their paper, and then what they're going to do is come to D2L and submit the paper to you. You'll be able to then launch it in this screen. What's really cool about this is students will also be able to launch this from their side of D2L, which means they have a tool that empowers them in the revision process. So if this is picking up plagiarism, similarity, the student has a cue and it should trigger their efforts to clean up that similarity, make sure it's cited properly. There's also a grammar and spell check feature in here too that we're going to take a look at that gives them help during that revision process. So let's dig into the three toolbars that we have on the right side of the screen now. I will give you a deeper dive into each of those, show you all the tools that you have available to you here, and then we will back up to D2L and I'll show you how this assignment gets facilitated or created from the D2L side. A note about the D2L integration. It does save you a lot of time because we do have plenty of users who use Turnitin directly through our turnitin.com website. And doing that requires you to manually build out all of your courses and manually add each student to each course. D2L is going to take care of that for you. So it's as simple as activating Turnitin within a regular D2L assignment. And I understand we're all new to D2L as well, which is why I'm going to show you the exact workflow. You'll have it on the recording to fall back on. I'm also going to send any documentation I have for the workflow after this. I'm going to send that to Lisa and she'll be able to post that somewhere for you. All right, so let's start with a deeper dive into the three tools on the side. I like to start with the red toolbar because that's the one that our faculty users are most likely interested in. It's not redundant with anything else, while the blue and purple toolbars are meant for feedback that are kind of redundant with stuff that you can already do in word processors or D2L, but we will get there. Let's start with the red toolbar. You can see from this report here, if I click this number 12 here, that's our match overview or similarity score for this paper. So at a glance, this tells me that 12% of my students' writing on this paper matches something found in those Turnitin repositories. There's over 70 billion websites in there, over 1 billion student papers, and about 70 million of those academic journals and periodicals and publications. So all of that gets checked and compared to your students' work, and then we have the results listed on the right-hand panel over here. So all I did to launch this was click the number 12 here, and now I can click into each source individually to see the match in comparison. So I'll show you how that works. I'm going to scroll down the page. Let's say we wanted to check out this Wikipedia match a little closer. When you click that, the essay will automatically scroll up to the area that that match was found in. It'll call your attention to it with this box here. And if you click this little side-by-side button in that pop-out, you can actually view your student's version of that text on the left and the source's version of that text on the right. You can see them right next to each other. So on the right, this is this Wikipedia article, and I can see the context from which this paragraph, the student's paragraph, was pulled. I can also click the blue link above it, and that will link me out to the actual web page that the source is coming from. Now, when you come across a student-to-student match, you will see one of two things. If it's another South Suburban student, You will see a side-by-side view just like this. Instructors are able to see matches between each other's students as long as they're coming from the same institution. Students will not see each other's work. All they will see is that instead of Wikipedia here, it'll say it's from South Suburban, but they will not see each other's full source text. That is the instructor view only. The second type of student match you might come across is a match from outside of the institution. And in that case, you will not be able to see the full text. You'll get a message instead that says this is private content because we're protecting the student's privacy wherever they may be. And it also goes both ways, so you don't have to worry about your student's work being revealed to anyone outside of the institution. All right, if there are any questions, please just remember unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. The overall similarity score that you will see here, there is no magic number or threshold that we're always looking for. It is going to be determined by the type of assignment that you are assigning. So for example, a creative writing piece off the top of students' heads is going to be a 0% match. That's what you're looking for, or something very low. A research paper, on the other hand, where we're asking the student to provide unoriginal work, data, quotes, statistics, anything. The more of that that's in the paper, the more they're allowed to post, or the more that we've required them to cite, the higher the normal number will be for that assignment. So you will get a feel for what's appropriate for your specific assignment, and then check into any anomalies. Just recently, Turnitin added a second number button over here on the red toolbar. This one says 2 for me, and you can see a little flag icon. Now, the similarity match here is available to students as well. Like I said, we encourage faculty to make these reports available to students before the due date of the assignment. That way the student can take action and fix their citations. The flags button here is for instructors only, because this focuses in on intentional attempts to plagiarize. It will surface text manipulation to you. So I want to give you a couple examples. First of all, hidden text will be called out to your attention. So here I can see that I have a big white chunk on the paper. So by the, just using the naked eye, I cannot see any text here. Turnitin is saying, hey, there's hidden text here. Be aware of it. It could be an attempt at cheating. So number one, if you have hidden white text on the page, it could be an attempt to artificially inflate that score, or I'm sorry, the word count of the paper to earn whatever the page length requirement score is for that paper. So this can call that out for you. Alternatively, what if a student replaced all the spaces between their words with like a white period? So it looks like there's spaces on the page, but all of that is really one big word separated by periods, one big string. That could be an attempt to try to slip that paragraph by the similarity scan. Either way, Turnitin will call that out for you now, because it's looking for hidden text and it's looking for replaced characters. So in my second flag here, I can see a paragraph where all of the letter E's have been replaced with the Cyrillic version of the E character. And again, that can be an attempt to try to fool the similarity detection. So whereas your similarity match here can be totally innocent, because let's say it's just sloppy citations, or we just need to reference something a little bit better, the flags panel is going to call out intentional text manipulation, weird stuff that looks like it's intended to slip the paper by the similarity detection service. Yes, so it is crazy, and it's rare, but it does happen. In the past, you would have had to do some real digging looking at the original file if you suspected something like this, but now it's just at the surface for you here. That came out earlier this month, 10 days ago, August 4th, this feature was released. Okay, So yeah, that's the gist of similarity checking. We will talk about a couple more options that you have in here when we look at the setup on the D2L side. But let's take a look at the blue and purple links now, or the toolbars here. The blue toolbar is for leaving instructor feedback on a Turnitin document. And I want to be clear on this. You don't have to use this. I know that Brightspace offers its own annotation tools, and enabling a Turnitin assignment is compatible with them. So you don't have to use this system. But if you'd like to, you can use the Turnitin interface to mark up your students' papers. There are two main benefits of doing so. The first is Turnitin gives you access to what we call quick marks. So you have a whole library of built-in comments that you can choose, you can preview them and drag and drop them into the paper. You can also click somewhere on the paper and access the quick mark library there. The point of this whole system is to speed up grading by saving you time, so you don't have to type the same simple comments over and over again. You can have a quick select list and just drag them into the paper as needed. You can also create custom comments and save them as quick marks. So you can customize your list or your library so that you can make your own list here and choose whatever tags you'd like each time. So that's the first big difference. The second one is if you are using Turnitin-based rubrics. So Turnitin offers rubrics that are built into the system. My test assignment here showing a high school level rubric, but you can totally customize these. You can make them say whatever you like. And the comments and quick marks that you leave throughout the paper may be tied directly to specific rubric criteria. And that serves two purposes. For the instructor, you're collecting all the evidence you need to make an accurate score when it's time to grade. And for students, they'll be able to review exactly what they need to fix to improve each rubric category's score. So the downside here is, again, the rubric and grading is totally separate from the Brightspace's native feedback and grading and rubric system. You may use either one. Please use whatever works better for you. If I'm not sure, so we had a question, how do Turnitin rubrics differ from Brightspace? The big differences are, if you already have Brightspace rubrics built, you're going to have to build them again if you'd like to use them on the Turnitin screen. The second difference is the Brightspace rubrics, while they can be annotated, you don't have that convenience of just tying every single comment throughout your paper to a specific rubric criteria. So that's the big difference. If I go to add a comment here, you can see I have this rubric button here, and I can assign it to a rubric criteria. And then you can also grade in this side panel. So I guess the third difference would be that it's cosmetically different. You're working with a different interface. But anything you do grade with from the Turnitin-based rubric, if I click apply to grade, we'll see that the grade goes into this box up here, and then we can change that grade. When we leave this screen, maybe to move on to the next student, either by clicking a student on the drop down here or clicking next. When we move on to the next screen, that grade will get locked in, and it will send it to the Brightspace gradebook. I shouldn't say locked in, you can always come back and change it, but I guess the word is updated. This grade will be updated in the Brightspace gradebook, and then when you publish grades, students will see them as well. Yes, so that was a point I wanted to make. So Kevin brings up a good point. If the institution is using some type of outcomes program where we are looking at data across the institution, it'll definitely be harder to pull that information from Turnitin rubrics than it would be to pull from D2L Brightspace, because Brightspace facilitates that better than Turnitin. You don't have to go a separate layer in and look for Turnitin rubrics. Also, if there is an institution-wide initiative, I suggest sticking to one place for rubrics, or else it's going to be a pain to have to collect data from all over the place. Yep. Okay, the third toolbar, our purple one down here, is an automatic spelling and grammar check. So this works similarly to how those squiggly lines do in word processors, with the red squigglies for spelling mistakes and green for grammar. This is a little different. You get purple highlights for spelling and grammar across the paper. Unlike the blue layer in which the instructor creates all of the feedback, the purple layer does it automatically. So it will mark up a student submission with grammar and spelling callouts. And as long as the student has the ability to resubmit before the due date of their Brightspace assignment, they'll be able to check out this report and click into the grammar and spelling issues for details. So, for example, if I'm reviewing this as a student, I've made my rough draft submission, I'm reviewing the paper now, and I see that I have a passive voice problem here. I can click on the report. Oh, bear with me, I just need to do a refresh. Okay, so here we go. I was looking at this passive voice issue. I can click on that and view a handbook to get more information on what passive voice is. So let's assume we're starting with the advanced level of the handbook. The instructor sets the level of the handbook when they set up the assignment in Brightspace, but then the student may jump around to different levels. And what I mean by levels are just the different versions of the article to meet the students where they are in terms of language proficiency. So for example, what I'm showing you now is the advanced version of the article about passive voice that gives the student information on what passive voice means, gives examples throughout the article and when not to use it. But if the student needs to, they can drop down this list here and select different versions of this article. For example, if I go with English learners, you'll see that the article updates to kind of simplify the language used in the article. So there are multiple versions that the student may access on their own during their revision process. As the instructor, you choose what you want shown on the assignment. It's broken down into 5 categories. So we have grammar callouts, mechanics, style, usage, and spelling. You can set which ones you'd like to appear for an assignment when you're configuring the assignment, or you can show and hide whatever ones you'd want to see on the actual paper. You also have the ability to hide these or dismiss them one by one, or add context in a comment to them.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt. Maggie Shear, English faculty. So previously in Moodle, our LMS that we were using before this move to D2L, TurnItIn did not have this ETS, this E-rater function. So in this, I don't want my student to be apprised of, when they submit their final draft, of the potential grammar and sentence level errors, because that's part of our learning process in their early assignments. So I have the ability to disable all of those functions, correct?
Yes, when you're setting up the assignment, there will be a checkbox that says something like enable ETS E-rater, and you just leave that unchecked, and then no one sees the purple toolbar here when you're looking at the reports. Yep.
Thanks.
Hey, Chris, if I could jump in here just a second. Maggie, this isn't a D2L function. We actually upgraded our product with, like TurnItIn has a new product, a new version. And so we went with a newer version effective this fall. And so whether you're using Moodle or D2L, these same features will be available to you in TurnItIn. It's just how it integrates into the LMS that's different.
Got it. I acknowledge that this additional feature, this upgrade to TurnItIn, is very advantageous. The thing that Chris is talking about right now would bode well for my literature course, for example, but not for 101. So just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's flexible, so it'll meet different use cases. Okay, so the final button I wanted to show you in here before we head over to D2L is just this download button. Sorry. Okay. There's a download button on the bottom right of the screen. Both students and instructors have the ability to download what's called a current view report. The current refers to which of the toolbars are currently activated. So you may have noticed I've been turning these on and off as I've been demonstrating. If we have those all activated and generate that download current view report, you get a PDF of the Feedback Studio screen that is then printable. So for instructors, this is helpful if you need a report that proves the plagiarism. If you need to escalate a case with administration or something, you have that here. For students, this is a powerful tool because sometimes they are working with a writing center tutor, or maybe they just prefer to do their revising on a hard copy of the paper. They can print this for themselves. It shows every comment and similarity markup throughout the paper, the same way it did on the electronic version in the Feedback Studio window. Now the difference here is, of course, when you're going through the paper, you can't click on anything because it's meant to be printed. So you get the details of the similarity listed below, as well as the markup listed below, whether it's the instructor markup or the automatic grammar and spelling. It all shows up below in the same order that it appears above. If there is a rubric attached, there's also a copy of the rubric on the bottom that shows the student's current proficiency and the other levels of that rubric. All right, so let's head over to Brightspace now, and I'll show you how to build these in the Brightspace environment. So there are two approaches. I know we're still learning D2L, and honestly, I am too. I've been working with it on and off for 3 years now in demonstrations, and it's like every time I'm in here, there's different ways to do things that I'm discovering. So bear with me here, but there are two angles that you can come into with D2L, similar in I guess in method than what's available in Moodle. But you can either build directly into a content area, meaning you go to content and you'll see a list of content that you've provided for students broken down by module or topic, however you've done it. If that's the way you're building your courses, you can always add an activity from that screen. Alternatively, you might be working from an assignments or folders tab, which gives you direct access to all of the assignments that you've built for that class. And students, if they have the content and assignments tabs available to them as well, they can access it at either angle. So do what you're more comfortable with. For me, I'm going to build a new folder directly in my assignments tab. And when we build a new folder, and Lisa and I were just talking about this, the view that I'm showing you now is now considered Brightspace's classic view, where we're working on a properties tab first, and then we move sequentially through restrictions, objectives, and Turnitin from left to right. D2L just updated their environments to allow a newer experience that looks more like this, where basically the first tab is taking up the largest portion of the setup screen, and then the other three tabs are smaller boxes on the right. Cosmetically, it's a little different. If you prefer to go this way, that's fine. It's the same functionality. So as opposed to going through the 4 tabs, you are working with 4 different areas of the setup screen. But all the same options are available to you. It just looks different. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the options and talk about which ones apply for Turnitin assignments now. So as we move through the tabs, certain things are required, certain things don't matter in terms of the Turnitin assignment. So the first thing that's required is on the properties tab, and that's of course going to be our title for the assignment, the name. You may add instructions for the student here. You may attach resources for the student if you need to. I'm limited to the individual submission folder, meaning that one student is going to be submitting and for themselves, and that's it. For submission type, we're going to go with file submission. Turnitin will work with a text submission as well, but that encourages just copying and pasting into a text box on the student side, and we don't want that because you'll lose formatting that's intended in the original document. So we want the original file We're going to allow unlimited files per submission. This just means when the student is coming to submit, if they needed to, they could submit more than one file. It doesn't matter if you are accepting, I guess I should say the unlimited button here is more for projects where you are anticipating the student uploading maybe a few documents or a document plus a slideshow, something like that. So you could limit it to one, but I find that a lot of people just leave it on unlimited, and when the student is asked to submit one paper, that's what they'll give you. For submissions, this is the amount of times that the student can submit a file. So it defaults to all submissions are kept, which is good. That encourages student revision, which means as long as the due date has not passed yet, the student can see their Turnitin reports, take action, and revise, and then provide the revised version to you, and you'll have the whole history there. You'll be able to see all of the submissions and the student's progress. If you want, though, you can limit them. Only the most recent submission is kept, means that when they submit, they'll overwrite their old submission, and you're only going to see the most recent. And then finally, only one submission allowed will lock them into just a single upload. So if it is a high stakes, end of the semester assignment that has already had its own rough drafts, you might want to lock them into that one submission. It's up to you. I don't plug anything in for notification email. I believe this one is actually missing from the new view. It's not part of the new view setup. But this means that if students submit work, I will get an email that tells me the student has submitted work. And if you have a big class, that means you're going to get a lot of emails. So I don't bother filling that one in. So we had a question, are we able to make a Turnitin assignment worth more than 100 points? 100 points was our limit when it was embedded in Moodle. That's a good question. I don't know. Let's test it out. Let's do 200 points and see what happens on the Turnitin side. So yeah, we're plugging in a grade here. We can set a category if we have categories broken out in our class already. Those are grading categories. Grade item is the column. Rubrics here. Now this is important. The rubric selection you're seeing on the Brightspace interface here, that is a Brightspace based rubric. So if I click that, it's looking at my Brightspace catalog of rubrics, and I will add that. And that's nothing different from what you're probably have already looked at for D2L rubrics. This is not the Turnitin based rubrics. I'll show you where that pops up later. We can set the default scoring for the rubric, and nothing's different about ePortfolio or anonymous marking. So I'm going to go ahead and save this page. And now we'll go through the other tabs. So again, if you're using the new interface, it's at this point that you would jump into those three other boxes. So I'm going to go into restrictions first. This is where we're going to set our due date. So I will push off that due date. You can also set availability for the assignment itself. That's the visibility of the assignment to students. I would recommend, you can time release it with the has start date, but I would not put it as end date because we want students to be able to return to their old similarity reports even after the assignment has passed. And we don't need to set any special access today, but you can do that if you'd like. I'm going to save this page, and then we'll move on to objectives. Nothing on objectives is required for a Turnitin assignment, but you are more than welcome to add them if you're using them here. And then finally, we have the Turnitin tab itself. And this is where we're actually enabling the product. So everything else up until this point is Brightspace based, and Turnitin will grab onto those settings. But this is all the Turnitin specific settings. So it's not going to be activated until you check this box that says enable grade mark. And when you check off that box, you'll see Turnitin, it tries to contact the system in the background. And when it's all successful, when it's done, the box will be checked. And originality box, the originality checkbox will be checked as well. You have a transfer option here for grades. This is a Brightspace function here. We want to leave this on automatically synced grades as draft and Brightspace, meaning if you are using this grade box when you are looking at Turnitin reports, that grade will automatically carry over onto the Brightspace side and allow you to publish that grade as opposed to having to type them in again on the Brightspace side manually. For originality check, we have allow learners to see Turnitin similarity scores in their Dropbox folder. That one is really crucial because that gives the students the permission to view these reports, and we want them to have that. Under that, we have frequency. Again, we'll set that on automatic because if not, it means that you will have to manually generate a Turnitin report for every submission individually. We want these to just run in the background when a student submits work. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save this page before jumping into more options in Turnitin. You don't have to do a save. I like to save it because it makes sure that everything is updated when we open this extra screen. I'll give you an example here. When I launch this window, we can see the Turnitin options. Now, until I hit save, things like the title of the assignment, you may have noticed I've been saving each page as I go. It's because when we get to this point in the Turnitin assignment, it looks to grab the settings that have already been saved in Brightspace. So if I had not been saving along the way, the title would be, it would still say untitled here, and the grade would have been set to the default, which I believe was blank. And now that I've been saving, we can see the updates here. So it'll work either way. You don't have to save each page like I have been doing. I just consider it a best practice so you can see the most up-to-date Brightspace information here. It's just the way that the two tools get along with each other. It's the way the communication works. Okay, so yeah, it would have said, if I had not been saving, it would have said untitled, and we would not have had a max grade plugged in here. But eventually when I save and close the assignment, all of this would update in the background anyway. So either way works. The question about the maximum grade looks like 200 carried over just fine, which means when you're grading over here, instead of a 100, you'll have a 200 point value here. Sure, yeah. Okay, the box here that launched when I clicked more options and Turnitin. You can't tell, but so far everything we've been doing has been Brightspace based, meaning this is a Brightspace server that we are plugging in options for. This external window it's Turnitin's turn. So this is the actual Turnitin website in a window that we are configuring our assignments for, because when you use Turnitin through Brightspace, Turnitin.com kind of serves as your archive. So you never have to go to Turnitin.com, but that's what this box is representing here. So let's configure our settings for this assignment. I open up the optional settings. Oh, by the way, you can see that these are grayed out because they're locked in from the Brightspace settings. And we're going to see that again as we go down this list for different components. So when you are configuring an assignment, you are choosing where to submit papers to, either the standard paper repository or nowhere. If you want to be able to check your students' work against each other, you will have to have your papers entering the standard paper repository. So in other words, student A's paper needs to be in the repository in order for student B's paper to check against it for similarity. For allow submission of any file type, by default, Turnitin works with Word documents, slideshows, spreadsheets, anything that you might expect to have to check for similarity, it will work with. Checking this box off is unnecessary. What it does, it will open up submissions to things like images and sound clips and videos, and we don't need that. The only case that you might have that is if you have no interest in similarity checking, but maybe you want to use the annotation tools on the Turnitin side on a photograph or something visual. I think that's what the intended use case is there. For allow late submissions and enable anonymous marking, you'll see those two are grayed out because we've already indicated that we are allowing late submissions on the Brightspace side, and I did not enable anonymous marking on the Brightspace side. So those are grayed out. They're remembering what I've already set out here. So the next section here, enable grammar checking using ETS eRater, that is the box that determines if you want that purple toolbar or not. So we had a quick discussion before about, what if I don't want markup, because by that point students should know how to write. You can turn this off by clicking the checkbox here, and then you don't have to worry about it. If you do want it on though, you just configure what handbook you want the students to see first, and then you can choose which categories you want running. Under that, this is the Turnitin side for attaching rubrics. So if I check that off and click Launch Rubric Manager, I get another window where I can customize rubrics. I'll go ahead and create a new one. You'll see it's blank. This is the Turnitin Rubric Creator. Again, you don't have to use this, especially if the institution has a bigger outcomes objectives initiative going on that leverages the Brightspace side rubrics. You don't have to worry about this. The only reason you would use this is if you value that ability to tie comments to the rubric and you have no stake in the institution-wide rubric initiative. But yeah, you can build a rubric here and then it would be available for use later on over here, whereas the Brightspace rubrics will appear on the Brightspace screen. All right, let's get back to our list here. Under the rubric section, I'm actually going to turn that one off. We have compare against, and this just ensures that when we are checking students' papers for similarity, we're checking against all three repositories that I had mentioned. Under similarity report, we want to usually go with the second option for this dropdown. It says generate similarity reports for student submission. So this determines when the reports actually run. And if we are allowing resubmissions, we're going to go with generate reports immediately, but students can resubmit until the due date. And then to try to prevent trial and error, plagiarism, cheating, they are locked out after 3 resubmissions, and then they have to wait 24 hours to be able to resubmit again. That's just an anti-cheating measure. But yeah, this is going to mean that students submit their paper, they can see the reports, and then they can take action on the feedback from the reports. If you needed to, you can also limit the students to 1 submission here, or just not generate reports until the due date. And then let's see, allow students to view similarity reports. If you remember, that is what we've already identified out here on the Brightspace setup. So that's another grayed out box that has carried over. Another perk to hitting that save button each time, like I said, it's unnecessary, but I do it as a best practice, is because you get to see the checks here. They will carry over, and right away you'll know what's already been activated over here, as opposed to these looking blank until you hit the save and close button. A few more things. We have the ability to exclude certain things from the similarity report. You can set these exclusions on both the assignment level and on a per paper basis over here later on when you're using the filter. So when you are filtering things, you are hiding quotes, a bibliography, or a small source match based on a word count or percentage count. These are just nice tools for decluttering your report. So if you'd like to hide the quotes from the report, you may do so. If you want to hide the bibliographic information, you may do so as well. And the final checkbox on the very bottom of our page here is save these settings for future use, meaning the very next time that you create an assignment in this Brightspace course and enable Turnitin, you will not have to start from scratch when you are configuring these optional settings. Let's see, we've got 3 minutes left. I apologize, I know we're speeding through this, but I do want to get you out of here on time. So very quickly, what do you do once the assignment is made? Well, the student will enter the course. They will click on assignments or the content area that you've placed the assignment. And when the student clicks on the assignment title, actually, I believe I have a student view open over here. Yes, so this is a student's view of the assignments in a course. The student clicks on the title of the assignment and they will have the ability to add a file and submit their upload. When they're adding a file, they may do so from their computer. If they have something like Google Drive downloaded or OneDrive downloaded, they can grab it from there as well directly. So they submit their file and then it appears for review in 2 places. Assuming the instructor has given the student permission to see the reports, the student can view their submissions or their history to launch their version of the similarity report. So the student version of the report, again, does not have that text manipulation flags button here, but you can see here as the student, I can see my teacher's markup, the spelling and grammar, and the similarity. Now on the instructor side, you can do the same thing. You can launch reports by looking at the submissions, or you can even access the report through the gradebook. So let me go to my grades. And I believe the standard view. There's a way to look at assignments. Here we go. And you can break down, you can enter your assignments this way, I think, and find, no, I'm not doing this right. I apologize. I'm rushing. There's a way to pull up your students' submissions through the Grade Center, and it's the same idea. You're going to click on the similarity report button for them. I did want to call attention to one thing about publishing grades. So when you are entering grades over here, if you decide to use the Turnitin grading feature here, like I said, that should be sending the grades over to Brightspace. And when you're ready, when those grades are all in here on the screen, so you can see the student has a 60 right now, you do have to click publish feedback in order for the students to be able to see that grade and whatever feedback you've left with the blue tools here. So keep that in mind. When this is automatically coming over, it's only being posted for the instructor, and then you have the opportunity to edit that score until you publish it. You can edit scores after you publish it again. You'll just need to republish. Okay, so we're at the hour here. I know we need to jump off. I'm going to stop our recording.